Today, on Rise Up, we look at the recent episode of The Riser, where he explores the question, do we ever really die? Drawing on ancient scripture, forgotten traditions, and a strand of cosmology that winds from the Qur'an to the quantum multiverse, we examine ideas that unsettle the modern imagination. The preservation of the body, the repetition of history, the relocation of life across worlds. There are old stories buried in the verses, echoes of earlier Adams, altered Pharaohs, conversations that repeat with slight variation across the centuries. What do they mean? What is extinction, if not absence? And what might it suggest that when one world ends, another begins? This is Rise Up.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Rise Up. I'm Alia Halal.
Very good morning. Welcome to Rise Up. I'm Irfan Alamgir.
Another show, another day.
Another day in paradise.
Another day in paradise. And a lot of exciting things happening, which I'm really excited to go into today, actually, because it's been a very busy few days. We're still in the midst of it. And we're excited to share that with the rest of you guys, with what's going on and what direction we're going into.
Yeah, and a very interesting episode of the School of Divine Mysteries, a very fascinating topic. I think this is something that we really have to unpack and get a really complete understanding of, because it has such far-reaching implications. And I think when we do go through it bit by bit, we'll be able to really take as much as we can from this very, very important talk and speech by Sadiq.
Yeah, it was something, right? When you listen to the way he puts those facts together and how it is linked to scripture, and it's a very physics-based kind of talk.
Yeah, multiverse.
The multiverse, yeah.
What does that mean? And
it's so wonderful how Sadiq can talk about this different plethora of topics on the same series, whether it's scripture, whether it's history or physics, or it could be so many things. If you go through the School of Divine Mysteries, you'll note that there really are quite a few topics that he touches on, and people are sending their questions in every single day. We still receive loads of questions from believers around the world and non-believers both.
We do.
And these questions, they are good. It's good that you send them in, and you might wonder why hasn't my question been answered yet, but if you just wait a little bit, you might be rewarded very soon.
Yeah, this is it. And one of the greatest fears of any human being is the fear of death, the fear of extinction specifically, because if you're an atheist person, this is your faith, this is your belief. You believe that after you close your eyes and you take your final breath in this physical body on this physical planet, then that is the end of your journey with God. That's the end of your spiritual journey. It's over. You cease to exist. You cease to be. And this is a choice. To choose to think like this is a conscious decision. But is it the reality? That's the question. And to prove the opposite to be true is the goal of the next episode of the School of Divine Mysteries. So I'm really excited to get into that.
Yes. And before we get into that, let's quickly go through our breaking news. When it comes to this religion, when it comes to this community, we have a Bitter Winter article, a new one that has been released. Let's throw that on the screen. Okay. This is article number 4 in a series of articles that are touching upon the whole anti-cult phenomenon that's taking place. Anti-cultism. What an interesting term. AROPL and the rise of New Age anti-cultism, Wahid Azal's anti-cult hallucinations. And it's a very fascinating article. It is, as I said, one of a series of articles. And you can read the entire series at Bitter Winter. I think it's bitterwinter.com, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Go ahead and search Bitter Winter.
Bitter Winter will come up right at the front there. And this Wahid Azal, he's a prophet whose revelations come from hallucinogenic plants. He believes Chesna funds AROPL as part of a Jewish Sabbathean Frankist conspiracy. Wow.
That is quite a reach.
Quite a mouthful as well.
And coming from hallucinogenic plants, that's not very reassuring information.
Yeah, the Grand Sheikh speaks on his grand pulpit.
Isn't this another example of that Lucifer effect you were talking about?
Yeah.
Nowadays, you can actually go out there and have a platform and talk because you ate a magic mushroom and now you feel like you know everything.
Yeah, I mean,
and you're a good source of information.
Yeah, and it's clearly, I think it's, in this case, it's definitely distorted a lot of thinking. I think there's very little thinking involved. I think that things are being pulled out of the ether, and this is what some of these hallucinogenic plants can do, unfortunately. In this case, very much so the case. He's saying Chesna, they are involved in funding us because we are a Zionist conspiracy to help Israel conquer from the Mediterranean to the two seas, from the Nile to the Euphrates. We are trying to help Israel to establish its true intentions, which is the greater Israel, and this is of course an absolute lie, and we can prove that very easily.
I think just the fact that if you go into our teachings and you won't find any of that there is a good enough proof that that's not the case, because our objectives are very clear. We believe that God appoints a man. This man has the spirit within him, and he comes for all humanity, not a particular race or a particular bloodline or a particular tribe or nation. He comes for every nation, every tribe, every bloodline, and in general for the entire human family. He's here to establish peace and justice, and that entails establishing a state, a divine just state. And this is what the objective is for our religious community and for our people. It's to live together in harmony and to prove to the world that it is possible to live together, no matter how diverse you might be or how different you might be from one another. So this idea that this gentleman has about us is very wrong, and hallucinogenic plants are not a replacement for actual factual information that you can receive by talking to the people involved. So keep that in mind. I think it's important to do these public announcements every once in a while, because people seem to be forgetting how to use their common sense.
Yeah, and we have some conferences that have taken place recently where scholars from all over the world come and talk about this religion, and you'll see people, when they're in their right mind, thinking clearly, they have a very different conclusion to this so-called Grand Sheikh, or whatever title he chooses for himself. This is a hater, this is an extension of the Lucifer effect, and this is somebody that we denounce, because to spread hate and lies about people and put their lives at risk through their speech and hate comments, it creates a lot of strife, and we're against this, of course.
And speaking of the conference, the Mahdi has appeared. YouTube channel has a post about the conference on it.
Okay, there you go.
Let's check it out. It's the Ahmadi Religion of Peace and Light YouTube channel.
Yes, so today we opened our doors to the public and met so many of the amazing residents and crew. Hundreds of people showed up to our Beanies and Burgers event. Oh, that's not...
That's the Beanies and Burgers event.
And mingled with members of our community. Well, they surely did. And we had visitors of all kinds. Yes, we are very well aware of this, and this was a great and successful event that we had. But it's not the one we wanted to talk about right now.
All right, they're going to get the right post up. But hey, let's talk about the Beanies and Burgers event now that it's been brought up. These little activities that we've begun doing for the wider community in Crewe have given us the opportunity to make a lot of new friends.
Yes.
We have a lot of new people that are
local area.
Yeah, we're connected to different people now in Crewe, which is really wonderful. And also a testament to what we believe in, because we do believe in connection and we believe in communication. And this is why when they come up with these kinds of false allegations about this religion, just as we saw in that Bitter Winter article, it's such a shame, because we're very transparent. We're very happy to talk to whoever wants to understand who we are and what it is that we are about. So yeah, I really wish that those out there who have this idea of who we are, which is usually a negative one when it comes to these individuals, they could just talk and ask. They could send us a phone number and we'll give them a phone call. You know, they can send us a text message, an email. It's not that hard these days.
No, it's not. And these false sheikhs and non-working scholars are fanning flames and lying about what we are and who we represent. And then we have the Beanies and Burgers event, and on that day people get a completely different picture, and all their doubts and fears are dispelled by just normal human beings who are there to talk about their religious faith and why they follow this particular religion, why they believe in Abu Sadiq as the Caliph of God in this time, and then they leave with a totally different taste in their mouth. And now that you walk around Crewe, I do feel that people see different individuals wearing beanies, and they're like, oh yeah, those are the people at Webb House, they're pretty cool, they make really amazing burgers.
And they have really cool beanies, and we have so many locals coming to our gate asking for beanies.
Yeah? Really?
Yeah,
It's
we
a
really
new
do.
thing, huh?
And they'll message in saying, hey, can we have a beanie? Can I pop by and get one for myself? So the black beanie has become a pretty popular Crewe trend, which is really awesome to see.
Symbol of Crewe. Maybe next thing it'll be on the local football club and their badge.
Wow,
Who
can you
knows?
imagine?
Yeah.
But yeah, so these days we've been having this incredible global conference, it's a global conference in the sense that people around the world are coming in from different countries to attend, including various professors of religion and sociology. Okay, we've got the post now, let's go ahead and check it out.
But the professors would like those burgers.
See, I was wrong both times. It was actually on the official Facebook page of Abu Sadiq.
Let's hear it, Alia.
It says, today was the opening day of our 2-day event titled The Supremacy of God Conference. With a crowd of over 100 people in attendance, professors from universities around the world took to the stage to present lectures based on their findings and research of the religion. Members of the faith flew into the United Kingdom from all over the world to attend the conference, as well as members of the press. In attendance were representatives of the Cheshire East Council, the mayor, and reporters from the BBC and ITV. There also was in attendance a documentary film crew from New York City. Coverage of this event will be broadcast on our satellite stations and uploaded to our YouTube channels soon. This has been such an exciting, 2 days.
Yes.
It's still ongoing, and I think it's so brilliant, isn't it, to know that this is actually happening for the first time in our human history. And I think we need to take a second to really realize that and ponder over that. This event is the first of its kind, isn't it? The Supremacy of God event. The first time that the world is getting together under the banner and saying, believers and non-believers alike are getting together and saying, let's talk about supremacy belonging to God alone, under the banner of the Ahlul Bayt of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. Wow.
Yeah, it is big.
That's huge.
That's huge. And
That's huge.
You can see all these people have gathered. You have not only professors and people from the press, the ITV and BBC, but you also have documentarians from New York City. So people have all gathered together, and it's for a very good reason. It's because the Ahmadi religion of peace and light has really been put on that global stage recently with the kind of attention this call has been courting. And I think we really have to recognize that it had a lot to do with the timing that Abu Sadiq really decided to come to the forefront and address issues on the ground, real issues that matter to people. And he did it in a religious context. He did it as an imam, and that's why a lot of people have gravitated to him, whether it be the haters or the lovers. There have been people who became interested in him because he had something important to say, something that left a mark in their psyche.
Exactly, and these professors are delivering these incredible presentations. They have been studying the religion for a while now. It's been has it been a year? It's been a year now since they last visited our headquarters in that group that came. And they came into the Holy Basilica. They met with Abu Sadiq, from him his peace. They met with the believers. They looked at the beautiful paintings in awe and admiration, and they were so fascinated by what they were seeing that they began to study in depth what it is that this religion is about.
Yes.
And they have been studying not just the religion, but the impact of the religion worldwide when it comes to the love and the hate. And they've been watching all the different which is why we have these bitter winter articles, the different attacks and the different false allegations being thrown at the religion. And they've been studying the impact of these false allegations and objectively studying what it is that's happening from our side and what it is that is being thrown at us. And it's so wonderful to hear these academics actually talking about the religion in a way that is objective and very beneficial for whoever is listening. Because it's important to have that communication. As long as people have the correct information, what they do with it is in their hands. And our task is simply to make sure that the message is delivered.
Yes.
So it really is very refreshing. We've got some beautiful pictures from the day as well. Let's share that with the viewers.
Let's do it.
There it is, the Supremacy of God Conference, hosted by the Ahmadi Religion of Peace and Light.
Yeah, no, definitely a big scale up from last time. It was maybe a group of 10 professors who came for a field study, who stayed and listened to some of the Ansar present lectures on different topics related to the Dawah, of course, and this time it's just on a whole new level.
It really is.
It has its own official name, the Supremacy of God Conference. What a name.
What a name.
Hosted by the Ahmadi Religion of Peace and Light. It's had a lot more people involved in its organization, and it just goes to show the growth that's happened under a year from where we were last time.
It really has grown. You can see a tiny little sliver of the magazines. The new edition of the magazines have been printed, and there they are. And on the left you've got some brochures. Let's go to the next. Okay, Brother Imran is standing there, camera crew.
Yeah. There you go, looking very
setting up the presentation.
Suave.
Looking very proud of himself because the projector is working. No technical issues. That's such an achievement,
well played.
Right? Sister Veronica and Dr. Irfan, you're going to be very excited to hear this.
Yes.
Do you know who this is?
No, I don't.
This is Brother Zacharias from Andorra.
Oh,
this is the reason for all those Andorra posts in the community post segment.
Oh, Andorra has come home. Yep. No.
He came all this way to attend the conference, and there's Sister Veronica next to him.
Wonderful. There you go. So he's going to be here now, or is he just here for a short?
He came for the conference. Okay. Yeah, he came to visit for the conference. There's some of the professors. That's Willie Fortray, isn't it?
Yep, that's good old Willie.
Fortray.
Yes, very recognizable faces. All of them were present at the last conference.
Brother Timur, documentary crew behind him. Look at all these faces. Yes. There's Massimo.
Bigger venue, bigger stage, everything bigger.
Yes. Look at that.
Looks like a recording studio for a TV channel.
It's a really nice venue, right?
Yeah.
People reading these brochures.
So the people from the BBC are being represented.
The individual from the BBC.
the British brother.
The British brother.
Corporation.
Well, everyone is our brother and sister in humanity. It's our professor. Professor Arya Asfar.
A.K.A. Shahab. So it's a tag
Sister
team,
Marliana.
isn't it? Yes.
That's Sister Sarah Lazmi, that's Sister Shadi from Canada, and our own Sarah Musavi.
Yeah, so a lot of people visiting from abroad who have specifically come down for this conference.
Yes.
And you can see
3 Persian sisters.
Ah, yes. And they obviously knew each other from back in Canada, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It's a large country, you never know.
Look at all these faces. We have people here from the Maldives, people from the United States. That's Brother Leader from the United States. We have people from the United Kingdom, from France, Morocco. It's Andorra. There's Zacharias again. Yeah. It's just, it really is so heartwarming to see this, you know? Because all of these people are united under one principle that's pulling everyone together.
Yeah,
that's the
Supremacy of God Conference.
The Supremacy of God Conference. They're all holding magazine. So we've got on the stage there Susan Palmer, Eileen Barker, and our sister Farha, being filmed by that American documentary.
Okay, that's the documentary from New York. Let's see how it turns out. I'm excited to see it.
Professor Massimo.
Massimo.
I'm excited also to hear that the whole, all the footage basically that they took of this event will be broadcast soon on our channels. So we'll be able to share with the world how it was, how it went down, what people were saying.
I think this is the MCR's favorite photo because it's been on.
Let's go into the next photo. There it is.
Yeah, no, it's great to see all those faces. And I think all of the people who attended, a lot of the people present there are Ansar who have come quite recently into the call, and it's really good for them to witness this and to really get a sense of how big the dawah is getting on a global scale.
That's Holly Folk on the screen.
Ah, okay. Was she there?
She called in. It was a Zoom call, a Skype call. I don't know which app it was.
Wow.
Look at that. There's Sarah B. She's the one who made the documentary that was aired, the feature film that was aired yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
The hour and a half
When is that
long
coming out?
one. I can't wait for that to come out, actually. I think it's going to be out soon on our YouTube
I heard
channel.
it's a work of art.
And Brother Zong, of course.
Yes. The ever-present.
Ever helpful Zong. Laura Black Beanies. Got some new faces there of brothers who are joining the community as well. What a day.
Yeah, it looks like it. It looks like an awesome day, an awesome event. Lots of people talking about the call and lots of attention on the call in a positive way. And this is what we need to break that Lucifer effect that is in play by the non-working scholars, the liars who come up in every generation to oppose the true message of God from his prophets and messengers. We have to recognize them and denounce them and reject them before we can really perceive the light in its full glory. And they're doing everything they can. Lucifer is doing everything that he can. He's throwing the kitchen sink in panic because he wants to stop this ever-increasing march towards the riser of the family of Muhammad that we're seeing. People coming in droves into the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he can't do anything. The end is nigh for Satan and his kingdom, and we are seeing it in real time in those images of all those shining faces who have gathered here upon the truth in this day and age.
It is very exciting to actually be able to witness something like this happening in this day and age, because this is a victory for God.
It is.
This is a time where we as a people are able to lift a banner that is for him solely. It is only God's banner, and it only calls towards him. And this notion, this idea of allegiances to God is something we're so proud of and we're so passionate about, that we're willing to give our lives for it. And believers around the world have proven that in the different countries that actually do persecute you for believing in this idea or in this banner. And the fact
this idea
is,
of freedom,
yes,
banner for the glory of God.
It's a banner of freedom. It's a banner that lifts the shackles off of the human being and gives the human being back the ability to be a sacred entity, because no sacred entity should bow down to its equal. We should only bow down to that which is greater than ourselves, and nothing is greater than us except for God. And just that understanding is so liberating, so beautiful, that it is creating shockwaves around the world. People are feeling it and they're rushing here because they want to be a part of this great thing that's happening. But the fact that it's happening, we have to recognize that Abu Sadiq has single-handedly created this alternative reality, this true reality. He's opened the door to what actually is religion, what actually is the way to God. He's done this and enabled us to have these conferences and have this kind of conversation. So it really is a beautiful time, and we're extremely lucky. We're so fortunate.
No, very amazing. And can you imagine a year from now when the next conference happens, like how big is that conference going to be?
It's going to be so epic. It's going to be even bigger and greater and more beautiful. Yes, we're excited to see what the future holds. And speaking of realities, we must jump into our episode for today, which is about the multiverse. A very incredibly fascinating topic. Let's go on to the first segment of the episode and be right back.
So today we want to talk a little bit about death, about extinction, about whether or not these concepts are actually real. Are they false? Is there a need to be afraid of these things? What happens after them? I think from the very beginning of mankind's history, they became acquainted with this unfortunate event that takes place, right? At least in the opinion of man himself. And that is death, the fact that life is not eternal. It was something that deeply scared man and concerned man and saddened man. And we see man still being saddened and concerned by death and seeking to overcome death. It's a very big market. It's a multi-billion-dollar market. All of these anti-aging creams and plans and diets and different types of companies that claim that they can preserve your DNA or freeze your head or your body until a future time where people might perhaps be able to resurrect you, or attempts to transfer your consciousness or preserve your memories into some sort of computer system that can later be downloaded into a human being, so that the person may somehow be able to escape this reality of the fact that their physical biological body that they inhabit, or this suit that they wear, is not made without an expiration date, that there must come a day where it passes away. And we can even see that these modern attempts at preserving the physical body, it's not something that's limited to this modern day and age that we're living in, these attempts of preserving the physical, but it's something that mankind has been attempting to do for thousands of years. And we have the evidence for that being present in ancient Egyptian society and the whole mummification process, where the ancient Egyptians were obsessed with this whole idea of preserving the physical body. And even though they believed in an afterlife, and they believed in the concept of the soul leaving the body and traveling, in a different world or a different dimension, they still sought to preserve the physical body, and they went to great lengths to mummify the body and to make sure that it was not basically bothered or destroyed afterwards. And they connected the preservation of the soul with the preservation of the body. And for that reason, they used to build these big tombs, and they used to heavily guard it and make traps and put different types of poisons and things like this to harm all of those that would attempt to rob the grave or do something to the mummified body, because if they did something to the mummified body, then it would perhaps affect the the immortality of the soul itself. And so and we have also this concept of the need for the preservation of the biological body kind of leaking into Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. We have this concept of incorruptibility that exists. We definitely see it in Judaism, and there are certain narrations that spoke about how the body of Baruch, the scribe of Jeremiah, was not affected by the normal decomposition process that takes place after death, that his body was not decomposing, it was not affected by the insects or the worms or the bacteria of the earth, and that it remained in its state. And this was seen as a miracle and a sign that this was a saint or somebody that was close to God. And certainly in Catholicism also, and you were a former Catholic, this is a big concept in Catholicism, and it is seen as one of the signs that a particular individual would be considered to be a saint. And the popes in the past have declared certain individuals to be saints based on this fact, the fact that their body didn't decompose after death. And they see it as a sign that this individual will be resurrected with Christ, because Christ's body, according to Catholicism, did not decompose. Obviously, it's living, it's alive. He resurrected after death. And so this is seen as kind of a sign that God is preserving, or Jesus is preserving, the bodies of these particularly faithful individuals, so that when he comes back to the earth, that these bodies may rise from the dead once again. And this idea of incorruptibility also exists in the religion of Islam, actually. And it's one of the beliefs that all Muslims have, that the bodies of the prophets and the messengers, actually, and the vicegerents, that they are not corrupted after death, that they are not eaten, that they don't decompose. And they believe that, and they have many stories that when people, for example, were uncovering the grave of Imam al-Hussein or one of the Imams or the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the bodies were in the same state as they were. And they believe that if a person was to uncover any of the graves of any of the prophets and the messengers, that they would find the prophet and the messenger in that same particular state, looking as if they were alive, just sleeping. And this is something which is based off of the tradition from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he stated basically that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it haram, he made it forbidden for the insects of the earth or for the creatures of the earth to basically eat on or corrupt the flesh of a prophet or a messenger. So it's an aqeedah, that's one of the beliefs of Muslims.
Yeah, no, it was the beginning of a very, very fascinating speech and lecture, and I think that the stage is being set, isn't it? It's one of the biggest human fears that after we expire on this planet, then it is the end for us, and there is nothing after it. And this is, of course, the belief in atheism. This is the kind of prevalent belief that is unfortunately in this country now, as Christianity seems to be dying slowly but surely. However, when you read the religious scriptures, you will see Christ, for example, say on numerous occasions, those who believe in me shall live eternally. And those who follow him and the prophets and the messengers and God, those who are connected to God, are like God in the sense that they never truly die. And this is referring to the eternal spirit. But now that connection is being extended, possibly, at least this is where it seems to be going, to the physical body, to the avatar that the soul inhabits. Even that can be eternal. And this is something that Abu Sadiq is, I think, beginning to open our eyes towards, take us in that direction step by step. And it seems like a long shot, especially in the context of all the Gnostic scriptures we've been discussing, where the material bodies are seen as prisons from the creation of Iblis. But wasn't Iblis used as an intermediary to build the physical universe?
He was.
You know, so ultimately it was by the will and permission of God that he was able to do what he was able to do. It was through the wisdom and power that God had endowed Iblis with that he was able to pull off this Herculean task of the physical universe and its many different dimensions and aspects.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Not existing is a huge fear that exists in the human psyche.
Yeah.
And there's many different aspects to death in scripture. We also see that it's seen in biblical scripture that death is a punishment for the first sin that was committed. And that death wasn't something that was meant to exist, right, in Eden. But because of approaching the tree or eating the apple, whatever the analogy is, the ultimate consequence of that became death. And Abu Sadiq has spoken on this particular kind of belief that exists in Judeo-Christian scripture. He's talked about it. But it is interesting that death is that kind of punishment or that feeling of annihilation. It's over, it's done. And it's something that people are afraid of. And that is why there were all these concepts in ancient history, right, of mummification, trying to preserve the body from rotting. Because it was seen as something that is very important. The body not rotting was a very important kind of belief that existed in many different nations and peoples. Why? Because it is seen as something sacred. And it not existing anymore was what people were afraid of. And the richer you were back in the day, the more investment you'd be pouring into making sure that after death you're taken care of, to the point that even the belongings of that person were put around their mummified body, wouldn't they be? And their pets were mummified next to them, so that they could be raised again together. It was really quite an objective. They
put a lot of effort into it, and the afterlife was in many ways considered to be more important because it was the journey that would go on, and you would want some useful tools and things present with you so that when you did come back to life, you'd be able to start anew in a new place, in the same body even. And this is not just something that was practiced by the ancient Egyptians. It was actually very commonly practiced by the Vikings and those people who lived in the extreme northern hemisphere. They would also practice this thing of creating these tombs in which they would take certain items that they believe would help them in crossing that bridge into the afterlife, where they believe that the soul would then re-enter the body, but in a different dimension, in a different reality. So yeah, it's really interesting, and there are many cultures that practice building these kind of very elaborate tombs for royalty and for those who had the ability to do it. It was considered to be one of the most important things that you should prepare for.
And I think it's also interesting that there's this weird kind of these seemingly contradicting ideas that exist. One being that we know that everything in this realm is temporal, it's illusionary, it's not real, it's going to die, it's going to end. Nothing remains as permanent in this physical realm. That's one of the key features of this physical realm, that everything can leave you and does leave you. But there's also the other aspect, which is very interesting, which is that matter cannot be destroyed. You cannot get rid of mass or matter. You cannot get rid of it. It can change, it can convert into something else, but it can never disappear into nothingness. So what's that about, right? How do both kind of work? I think this episode opens up all these questions, and as you go along, you kind of start to see Abu Sadiq, when he does a lecture, it's kind of like learning how to drive.
Yeah.
It's a sense that you get off the topic.
Yes.
Right? Where you're sitting in the seat and you're like, okay, this is how it works, now I get it. But until you hear him speak about it, it's a very foreign topic, it's a very alien kind of understanding. You're not sure how to put all the pieces together till you reach the ending.
And we really have to get to the end of this one, because
the finale is right there.
It's really, yeah, and we have to talk about it. And let's really, really now pay attention to the words of Abu Sadiq, because it is about to take you into very exciting prospects into the future and into the very nature of our reality.
Let's go to the next segment.
And so the continuity of the flesh, of the body, of mankind has always been something that is in the psyche of human beings. It's not just about the continuation of the soul, but people so longed for and so wished for the continuity of the flesh, so that people would continue to reside or live in their bodies. They wanted, as a species, to survive as well. And we see there's a lot of talk amongst scientists about other species on the planet that are going extinct every single day, and talking about species such as the dinosaurs and other creatures, saber-toothed tigers, the woolly mammoth, other creatures that lived before us, that went extinct. And they talk about climate change, and they talk about taking measures in order to avoid the extinction of mankind. And they talk about even repopulating other planets, or sending off human beings to other planets in order that the human race may survive in the event of a nuclear disaster. You also see them developing certain technologies that allow them to resurrect and bring back to life creatures such as the woolly mammoth and the saber-toothed tiger and other creatures that went extinct. And that was the basis of the movie and the novel Jurassic Park, which now actually has become a reality, although they haven't resurrected dinosaurs, but they're resurrecting other creatures, and they're saying within a few years that they will have a woolly mammoth fully alive. And they also resurrected recently a wolf that had gone extinct from the time of the saber-toothed tiger or the caveman. And so this notion, this need, this work, this effort that science is putting into the resurrection of extinct species, really at the core of it, the motivation behind it, is to ensure that mankind never goes extinct, and to be able to resurrect human beings or certain races if they do go extinct for any reason. And so this is the story of mankind, this kind of search for immortality and hatred of death and hatred of the cessation of existence. So we want to explore this concept and talk about it from a religious perspective. Is it true? Does it ever truly happen that mankind ceases to exist? Does extinction day ever truly come upon man? We know that in many of the narrations of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, especially in the understanding that people have of these faiths, they seem to envision that there will come a day where mankind will totally annihilate itself or cease to exist, and that we would move on. That there's this so-called day of judgment or day of resurrection in which life ceases to exist, and then God comes and judges, and then God resurrects people and then makes people enter into heaven or into hell, but that this physical, worldly, earthly realm ends. It doesn't exist anymore. And I think that in order to examine and come to the truth behind this, we have to think like philosophers, think like prophets and messengers, and not merely think like scholars or repeat that which has been given to us in narrations and traditions without thinking alone. And I think that that is the entirety of wisdom in actuality. The entirety of wisdom. What is wisdom that people seek to attain? Wisdom is being able to have this insight that God would give a human being. Wisdom is not to memorize the words of the prophets and the messengers, but rather wisdom is to be able to come to the conclusion and get the answers to the questions that you need at that day and age, simply through insight that God grants you. And how would God grant you this insight? God would allow you to see things that normal people don't see. So people might be walking out into the street, and they would, see the trees and see the rivers and see the people walking around and see the sun and see the sky and see the clouds. But if it was Imam Ali alayhi salam, for example, or if it was Jesus who was walking around and seeing the exact same scenes that normal people would see, they would be able to draw some sort of moral lesson from behind it, or they would be inspired with some sort of insight. They would see in the trees, in the clouds, in the people, something which the rest of the people didn't see. Hence, they have wisdom, right? Or they have this insight from God. And I think that God has told us from the very beginning, and He's even told us in the Qur'an, that we have to gain wisdom through this way, that we have to be open to being taught by everything, and that God teaches us and talks to us in all things. And that's one of the things that Ahmed al-Hassan has told us on many occasions, that God speaks to us through all things, even through a rock. And when he says that, it means what? It means that God can teach us a lesson, that there's wisdom hidden behind all things, that God doesn't do things without cause or without reason. So the philosopher must consider, right, that if his eyes were granted the ability to see a scene in front of him at any given moment, then in that given moment there is a lesson that God wants the philosopher to extract or to learn from that which his eyes are gazing upon. And it's up to the philosopher then to start working his brain and to not be in a state of sleep, and to be more and more conscious and aware, and to think like a detective, and to try to extract the lesson, or to get the logic from behind why it is he is seeing what he's seeing right now.
Wow.
That really took me by storm, that particular segment, in many ways.
What I really like about the way that Abbas describes this topic, and before he delves into it, you can almost envision he's a teacher talking to a group of students, and he's standing in front of a door, and he knows what's going to happen when he opens this door. So before he opens it, he starts to teach the students how to perceive what's about to happen once we open the door. And he goes into how, don't just think inside the box, right? Don't just look at the books and read the words and be like, we know that this means this. Don't do that, because there is a lot more going on in the universe than what's written in a few words in a book, or what people understand of that topic in general. And the biggest mistake we can make is thinking that we got this, now we have it, we know what it means, it's done. There is so much more. And he's really showing us and giving the tools, really. He's saying, you know, put on your helmets, put on all the gear that you need before we enter into this new world, this new realm of thinking, because you cannot go into it thinking that you know it all. You have to go into thinking, actually, maybe there's more. Maybe God is saying to me a lot more than what I thought he was saying when I look at this stone, when I look at that cloud. And he's explaining that we need to be philosophers, because the topic at hand now is a lot deeper than what you're going to just simply read in a book.
Yeah, Alia, when you tune into any episode of the School of Divine Mysteries, you should be in a certain level of consciousness. Why not practice 2 minutes of stillness, of quietness, of just solitude before you watch these episodes? Because you will glean so much more than if you just turn it on in the middle of a busy day while the kids are screaming in the background and you're trying to do 12 things on your phone and
very,
messages and emails
personal.
flying by. You know what it is like, Alia. You know you've
been through that.
You've been cut from the same cloth.
Absolutely.
And then watch it. It's a totally different experience. And this is really about having that relationship with God, you know, this understanding, and Abu Sadiq used this word insight a lot. So now if you are a follower of the Ahmadi religion of peace and light, a believer in the seventh and final covenant, then the prayer is a continuous ongoing speech that you have, this dialogue that you have with God, the creator of the universes, and you are asking him questions, you are asking him for insight. And these subtle hints and insights only become visible to those who have this relationship with God. So they're talking to God, they're asking God, they're making continuous supplication, and suddenly they'll receive an insight. They will see something, or as something as inanimate seemingly as a rock, and they'll take so many more lessons from it as they're walking through the park or something, and they see the water and they see the duck with its wings flapping in the water, and for them it will mean something.
Exactly.
It will have a message.
It's a conversation you're having with God.
Exactly. This is what it's all about, and this is what Abu Sadiq is trying to teach us, and this is why meditation is so important. Meditation is just paying attention, right? But our attention is divided in so many different things in so many different ways throughout the course of a busy day, that when you meditate, the idea is just to bring your attention into one space. And this is what God really wants. He wants all of our attention. And then that's when we receive these insights from him, and not just through inner revelations, but also by looking at the material world and how it speaks to us in all things.
Yes, it really is. And he's basically delving deep now into this topic, and we're going to be going deeper into it. So let's quickly review the facts that we just heard. We know that it's about death and the idea that man is mortal, but what does that really mean? Why was so much insistence seen in history when it came to preserving the body? And why is it that even today it's a very sought after feat to be able to preserve the body as much as possible, to live as long as possible, to be as young as possible? Why are these very key desires of the human being? What is actually happening? Do we die? And when we die, where do we go? If matter cannot be created or destroyed in this realm, then where does the body go when it does decay? Because it does decay, we know this. And what does it mean for us spiritually? Because it's easy to say, yes, the body dies, it goes away, then we move on to another incarnation, which was the basic understanding of reincarnation that we've been talking about. But maybe there's more to it when it comes to the multiverse theory. Shall we go to the next?
So instead of being born 12 times on a particular planet, if you can just take care of the body, perhaps you can do it in 2 incarnations.
Maybe.
Perhaps is the question really Abu Sadiq is posing to the audience at this stage is death extinction, or is death the road to awe? And this is now going to open up the next segment.
Very nice. Is death just a doorway maybe into something else? Let's go to the next segment and see.
And God granted insight to people in the past, and there's a very famous story of insight that was granted to a particular individual, and that individual was Cain. It was right after Cain slayed Abel. In the Qur'an, he's sitting there and he's beholding the body, the carcass of his brother. And he doesn't know what to do with it now. It's just laying on the top of the earth, and there's blood all over the place. And then, lo and behold, his eyes gaze upon a scene, and he looks and he sees two crows, and the crows are fighting one another, and one of the crows kills the other. And then the crow that was victorious began to scratch in the earth, and it drug the carcass of the brother crow that it had killed. And it buried it, and it began to kick the dirt on top of it in order that it cover the carcass. And Cain, at that moment, he realized something. He realized that that the crows were more advanced than him, that he was less even than an animal, because an animal, his behavior was matching the behavior of an animal, and that is that he resorted to violence in order to settle dispute, and he resorted to murder and death, but he realized that God was telling him that the animals themselves are, have even more decency than you do, and they have more wisdom than you do, and they're able to, and they know how to, properly bury and honor the dead, which he didn't know how to do. But also, I think that it was a lesson for all Muslims who read the story, and all people that read the story afterwards, to realize from the story with Cain and the crows, and even the story of Solomon and the ant, right, where Solomon is this wise human being, this wise king, and yet he is taught a very powerful lesson according to Jewish narrations and also Islamic narrations from an ant, a very small ant who crawls on him, and everybody knows the story of Solomon and the ant, and if they don't, they can look it up. But it's a very famous story in which Solomon is traveling with his army, and he's feeling rather conceited, and he ends up basically hearing a voice, and he pulls over to the side, and he realizes it's the voice of an ant, and then he goes down and he puts his hand, and the queen ant crawls on his hand, and Solomon begins to kind of express how he's better than the ant, and the queen ant, she establishes the proof upon him, and she says, if you were better than me, then you wouldn't be lifting me up right now, but actually you're the one that's serving me by lifting me. And so she kind of proved that Solomon was being arrogant, and she put him back in his place. And so God is trying to teach us that we can gain wisdom and logic through and insight through that which surrounds us, and that God never leaves us. He's constantly speaking to us. So in the case of death and extinction, we also have to look to nature and how it operates, and to science and all that which we have gained of information and that which we see in front of us, and look for the patterns in nature in order to kind of come up with the answer of whether or not we do ever go extinct or we don't. And we have beautiful stories, Tiffany, in Islam narrations that speak about how God taught man about life after death through sleep and its daily cycles. And so when man became concerned about the fact that he may not exist after he dies, God granted mankind dreams, so that the people may believe that there is something after death, just like there is something after you go to sleep. And that something is that there's a whole nother world that you travel to, and you engage in all kinds of activities afterwards. And so mankind began to understand the concept of an afterlife from something which he was observing in front of his own eyes, and that he learned about reincarnation also according to certain traditions from this this very act of the repetition of going to sleep and waking up, or you know, that these cycles of day and night where people you know, die and they wake up, or they die and they're born again. And so you can find an afterlife in something in nature. You can find the pattern for reincarnation within something that is in nature itself. There are these mathematicians that have actually proven scientifically, mathematically, theoretically, all right, that extinction is an impossibility, that it would never happen. There's a Netflix documentary that people could look into. It's called A Trip to Infinity. And it has this particular scene in there in which the mathematician that's speaking is proposing this idea, this problem, when he's trying to speak about the concept of infinity. He says that if you take an apple and you place it into this perfect square box, right? And you left the apple in there for an infinite amount of time, what would take place? And they begin to say that first it would begin to rot, and it would begin to break down and dissolve, and it would begin to change form. All right, and so the form of an apple, it would die away, it would wither, and it would become dust. And then over a particular time period, that dust would begin to turn into a gas. All right, and then there would start to form these types of reactions, chemical, physical reactions would take place until a new form would be born, right? And then he said that basically all the different possible forms that an apple could take would take place in that box. So the apple would transform at one point into a car, it would transform into a banana, it would transform into a human, it would transform into a rabbit, it would transform into every single thing that it could possibly transform into, it would transform into that. Okay. Until it exhausted all possible shapes and forms. And then the question becomes, okay, well, then what would happen after that? Because the shapes and forms, they're, you know, like what would, I mean, they're limited, they're finite, right? There has to be an end to the amount, even though it's a very extremely large amount, but infinite, it exceeds even that, right? Yeah. Like God would survive his creation. God's lifespan is infinite, and so infinity is longer than even the almost infinite amounts of creation that could come into existence. This is what they're pretty much saying. And so after exhausting all the different possibilities, the mathematician says that it would end up returning back to the form of an apple once again.
Wow.
Thus proving that extinction is never possible.
Okay.
Okay?
That's very interesting.
That is a mind-blowing concept.
Check out that Netflix documentary.
Yeah, I want to see the whole thing. But just the idea that this collection of atoms and molecules which makes up an apple can never really go away. It will always continue to transform into one thing after another until it goes back into being an apple. This is what that mathematician was saying.
And then starting all over again.
Starting all over again.
Yes, through every single possible form that matter that makes up the apple can take. So a reassimilation of its atoms into a banana, from fruits, eventually into creatures and animals, all the way up to a human being. And then after it's assumed every possible shape that exists in your imagination and beyond, it then goes back to being an apple again and starts the cycle all over again. proving what you said, that matter itself is also infinite.
Yeah, because it cannot just go away. So what happens to it? And it's constantly in motion. It's a dynamic kind of creation, isn't it? This material world is not just sitting there idly with a lot of potential in it. There's something going on with that potential. It's doing something. And it's transforming into things that are changing over and over again. And I think that obviously those who are listening might be wondering to themselves, well, it hasn't been proven, you haven't seen it happening, the apple hasn't been studied to be doing this. But this is a theory that has been based on the various facts that are known and that which we do know for sure. So putting those ideas together, this is what people have come up with, and they're saying that this is most likely the scenario that you would see happening. But what that also tells us is that if this is happening to an apple, what is happening to the human being? And Abu Sadiq has essentially laid out the foundation now, which is that completely going out of existence is not real. People never cease to exist. There's always something, somewhere, someplace that you do exist. Maybe it's not the way that you saw it. Maybe the apple is no longer an apple, but that which was the apple is still there. And that's something to really ponder over, isn't it?
Yeah, plenty of food for thought.
A lot, no pun intended.
No pun intended.
Speaking of apples. But yeah, so just this concept, we know that the soul never dies. We know that Imam Ahmad al-Hassan said that a while ago. He said the soul never dies. So that's something that goes on and on. But the physical also seems to transform over and over and exist in some shape or form, in some place or the other.
Yes.
This is the bottom line.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And there's not much more to say on that.
Let's see where it goes from there.
Yeah.
I mean, now I want to see the next chapter.
Yeah, let's see what that leads to. I mean, now that we know that that's the case, then where does it go and what happens to the physical? Let's see.
And at the very end of it, they say, and the real question is what if we are the apple? Meaning, like, what if we, in this universe that's contained, have already gone through this many times before, and we are the apple? There's been a Tiffany, and then Tiffany died, dissolved, and all human beings died and dissolved, and then all of the different types of possibilities happened, and life forms were created on this planet until in the very end of it all, we were created exactly again. The same scenario repeats itself one more time, where Tiffany and myself are sitting in this chair, in this room, in this web house, having this discussion about this particular topic.
I mean, that's fascinating. That's fascinating to consider. And it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense that there's this repetition. I mean, we all can observe that that's the way that the universe functions. I mean, there's constant repetition. The sun goes down, the sun comes up, the seasons repeat, you know, in cycles, and everything returns to the way that it had been before. And even, you know,
so you're becoming a philosopher yourself?
Even religiously, like, you know, Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun, right? So, like, everything just, it repeats. And yeah, I mean, why would we be unique? And why would this be the first time that we are, you know, experiencing this and sitting right here? Who's to say that it has not happened before? It's really fascinating.
It is really fascinating. And when you think about this concept of repetition, not only does it eliminate the fear of extinction, but it actually confirms a lot of the words of the Qur'an, in which God is saying that is he not able to return you back? Is he not able to resurrect you? Is he not able to, you know, recreate life as he had done it before? And you also have in this book, Al-Haft al-Sharif, this fascinating concept or conversation that took place between Imam al-Sadiq and between Al-Mufaddal ibn Umar, in which Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam is telling Al-Mufaddal, you know, that there are these various different verses in the Qur'an that recount the conversation that took place between Moses when he was and Pharaoh when he was confronting him and telling him essentially to let my people go. and that in every account of the same story that exists in the Qur'an, so like in the Torah, for example, you only have one time, it's one account where Moses goes to Pharaoh and he tells them XYZ, and it's just a story that's being told. But in the Qur'an, it's like repeated. The same story is repeated in many verses. But yet, in every time that it is repeated, the conversation that takes place between Moses and between Pharaoh is slightly different. And people have thought in the past that, okay, well, maybe it was in the same setting, or the same time, right? Or the same day, the same hour when Moses went to Pharaoh to confront him. He said all of these different lines or all of these different things were said, but they were just spread out throughout the Qur'an. But Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam says, no, that actually what was taking place here is that each time that there was a conversation between Moses and between Pharaoh, it was referring to a different Moses and a different Pharaoh. And that before our Adam, there was an Adam and an Adam and an Adam and an Adam and 1,000 Adams. And each Adam had its own Abraham, and it had its own Moses, and it had its own Jesus, and it had its own Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, implying that the very world and scenario that we are experiencing right now is merely a resurrection, a recreation, a perfection, a repeat, a repetition of the same movie that has already played once before. And so Moses speaks to Pharaoh one thing a long, long time ago, perhaps billions of years ago. And whatever it is that he says to Pharaoh, it doesn't work out so good. It ends up in the same thing. And so God recreates the whole scenario once again. But because we have free will, we slightly alter the conversations, or the characters evolve in a way, or the movie is played out slightly differently so that it may be the same story, but yet new. Once again, like the remakes that they make of the Batman movies and the Superman movies,
I was thinking of this,
the different movies.
Wow. I mean, that's so, I mean, it's so cool. It's so cool. That is such great insight into something that is so mysterious, present in the Quran. And it's so amazing to know that Ahlul Bayt had interpreted this and told us, you know, the reality of the situation, the fact that history does in fact repeat, and we have evidence for it in the scripture.
Yeah, so now it gets into the scriptural side, and Abu Sadiq then says, well, let's take a look at the manuscript Al-Hafd al-Sharif and then relate it to the Quran, because there is a lot of Quran that is quoted in that particular book. It's a conversation between the sixth Imam and one of his foremost companions, Al-Mufaddal ibn Umar, and in it the Imam draws Mufaddal's attention to the verses in the Quran that are seemingly describing the same interaction take place between Moses and Pharaoh, the tyrant and the prophet, right? But there is a slightly different twist in each different kind of scenario that is mentioned in the Quran. And then the Imam kind of indicates to Mufaddal, well, is this the same, is this happening in the same reality? Or perhaps is it happening in a different universe, in a different reality that exists parallel to the one that Moses is in, and who knows what the real reality is. But the Imam is saying, well, here is an example in scripture where you have these parallel universes with slightly different interactions that have different outcomes.
So there are infinite realities, and different realities where the same things are happening in different ways, and everything that can possibly exist does exist, and therefore the multiverse theory starts to become a bit more clear. It's not a universe, it's not one place where everything is happening, it's infinite places in the same place where the same things are happening in different ways, which is so mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is so very, very mind-boggling. You need to have the screws in your brain slightly loose in order to understand it, but not too loose that they completely fall out of your head and come out of your ears. Because what we're now saying is that well, this is what I understand from it. I'm going to have to watch it one more time before I think I get it, and then maybe 7 more times after that. But what we're saying is that you have Adam, and then Adam is in the Garden of Eden, and then he does some things that have a certain consequence, but then it repeats itself in a slightly different way until we get to the next covenant bearer, Noah. Yes. And then Noah has many different outcomes, and he chooses one of them, it leads to something else, until eventually we come to his successor, Abraham. And then Abraham has all of these different options in front of him, and so on and so forth. And they go down these different timelines with these different outcomes, but they're happening in parallel universes until eventually it is the time of the rise of the Qaim of the family of Muhammad. And we are living in the 7th rendition of this story, which has been going on. And we've all heard of the 7 Adams mentioned in the Hafd al-Sharif.
Yeah. Yes. It really is. You said something interesting. You said, I wonder which one is real, when you were mentioning the different realities. That is such a great question. And that's something that would definitely need to be posed to Abu Sadiq, because if there are so many realities, are some more real than others? And what defines what is real? What is real and what is unreal? How can you know what it is? If it is based on sensation, then we believe that we're here. We believe that this is happening to us. But where else we are, we're also believing it's real and it's happening to us. So who's the one who defines?
So there's a parallel universe in which there is a rise up happening, but it's much more poorly done. And then another one where it is much more advanced and perhaps more professional. And perhaps we have an amazing visuals that come up every time we say something. It appears in the between us here, and we're like, voila. And this is the fascinating part of it, because now Abu Sadiq really takes it into the school of divine mysteries, and he says, well, I'm here, and there's Tiffany sitting opposite me, but they're also sitting here in a different universe. And also, this has happened perhaps billions of years ago, before the dinosaurs roamed the earth, in which there was this interaction where Abu Sadiq was doing the School of Divine Mysteries, and it had a different, the same Tiffany and the same Abu Sadiq were there, but billions of years earlier.
And scripture says there is nothing new under the sun. So whatever is happening has happened before. When did it start, though? When was it new? Was it never new? So many questions.
Yeah, things are beginning to fall out of my ear. Let's go to
put that cog back in. But yes, let's go on to the next segment.
And even today you have physicists that theorize, and they put forward the theory of the multiverse, right? And this idea that there are actually an almost infinite amount of worlds or universes that are existing right now simultaneously with our universe, and that every possibility that could take place is taking place in some particular universe. And that, so there's not one Tiffany, but there's almost an infinite amount of Tiffany's. Every possible Tiffany and every possible choice that Tiffany can make is existing somewhere in a universe, that every universe has. And so even if one universe, humanity became extinct, or Tiffany dies in that universe, she actually wakes up in another universe. And so Tiffany is always in existence, because there is an almost infinite amount of Tiffany's that are existing in almost infinite amount of universes.
Wow. That's really cool.
It is cool. And I think we'll end on this note. I will add one thing to the people and the viewers that are viewing the episode right now, and that is that the truth behind the matter is that there really is no such thing as extinction. Human beings have always existed and will always exist, because God is too powerful and too perfect of a creator that his creation ever ceases to exist. Once he creates something, it is always in existence. And that's certainly what we believe about the soul, and what Jews and Christians and Muslims believe about the soul, that the soul is eternal, but it's not something that people have considered or believe in regards to the physical flesh or the body. We're saying that also it is in regards to the physical flesh or the body. Not only have we came into existence as Tiffany and as Al-Sadiq 1,000 times before, but we will continue to do so. And not only are we existing in parallel universes at the same time as we are existing right now, but also God has this way of dealing with creation, whereby any time a creature becomes extinct on one planet, he is born or created on another planet, so that the universe that we are living in never becomes empty of any single creation at any single time. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So if the saber-toothed tiger becomes extinct on Earth, at that very moment that it becomes extinct on Earth, it is created somewhere else in the universe.
Wow.
And the same is true for human beings. If they go out here, they will appear somewhere else. And if they go out elsewhere, they will appear yet elsewhere. And so in the universe, human beings are always alive, even if they disappear from a particular spot on Earth for a time period, right, or a particular spot in the universe for a time period, they will still appear somewhere else. And so they are always in existence, not only in other universes, but also in every universe. Every creature is always in existence, very much in the same way that people on Earth, they think to themselves that they have eradicated, or even they state that they eradicate a certain disease, right, or a certain plague or a certain bacteria, but it always resurrects or appears somewhere else on the globe at a particular time period. And so nothing really goes extinct. The physical creations that God has created are forever preserved. And we have even narrations from Muhammad and the family of Muhammad that back up this idea. And there is one particular narration that I'll leave the audience with, and this is, it was concerning the punishment that beheld the people of Ad and Thamud. And basically the narration stated that when God decided that he was going to bring the punishment down on the people of Ad, there were believers from Ad, a few believers, but the majority of them were disbelievers. And God doesn't bring down a punishment upon a people so long as they have believers in them. And so what took place was that God commanded particular angels to go forth and to remove those believers of Ad from their nation, and he took them to another garden from the gardens of God, another planet from the planets of God that exists in the universe, and he placed them over there. And we have many narrations that talk about this idea of there being planets in the universe that are inhabited with life. And some of them refer to a couple planets called Jabalaka and Jabarusa. And these two planets have creatures on there that had never disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the idea is very clear, and it's very evident in the narration that even though those people went extinct on Earth, they ended up appearing on another planet. And that perhaps that the implication is also that perhaps that is the exact same way how Adam and Eve appeared on this planet, that they were first brought here as believers from a different realm or a different world.
Wow. Wow. I mean, you've blown my mind today. Thank you so much, Abu Sadiq.
God bless you, Tiffany.
This is such a fascinating topic, and I think that you've given us a lot to think about. And yeah, I mean, this final narration, it would make a lot of sense.
And it's a beautiful idea, and I hope that, like, you know, the people that are watching also realized how poetic it is. That now we can look at extinction in a different way.
Yeah.
That it's really just an interplanetary migration program or relocation program. That's all that it is.
Yeah, there's nothing to fear.
God bless you, Tiffany. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wow, this was an incredible episode, and Abu Sadiq from his piece has given us an important key to understanding a truth in the world. When the ancient people, they used to look at the sun and how it used to set and then return and rise in the morning, they saw it as a proof for reincarnation and the fact that life occurs in a cycle. And they used to look at the seasons and how the earth would die in the winter and then be reborn again in the spring. But now we know that there is more to this story. We know that when the sun sets in one place, it actually rises in another place. And when the earth in the apparent dies in the winter, somewhere across the world, it is the summertime. So what dies in the apparent actually never ceases to exist. And now we know this to be the case and the reality. And it's important that we look at nature, as a guide, because God has given us all of the things that surround us in order that we may learn from them and that we might extract wisdom from them. And now we know this to be the truth from Abu Sadiq, from his piece. For anybody who fears death, there's nothing to fear, because nothing that God has willed into existence ever ceases to exist. And there's a great comfort in knowing that. I hope that you learned as much as I did through this beautiful episode, and that you'll continue on this journey with us in the School of Divine Mysteries.
I think that we were just saying, right, while we were listening to Tiffany explain, that a life where you would not ponder over these ideas, and a life where you would not realize God's infinite ability, right, and his infinite reach, and his infinite love that is eternal, so much so that he would always have his creation exist somewhere, somehow, and love them and care for them as he has pledged to do. A life where you don't believe that would be such a tragically sad life.
Yeah, and it just goes to show an insight into the nature of God, that even when we watch these documentaries on television about certain animals, beautiful creatures that used to live on this planet and then went extinct for various climatic changes, different reasons, diseases and plagues, and when they're wiped out, well, they never get wiped out in the mind of God. They just get, as Abu Sadiq said, relocated somewhere else, where they then abide forever in one place or the other in the infinite universe that has been created by the infinite Lord of all creation. So it's a really beautiful and poetic sentiment, as Abu Sadiq said there, and it goes to show that, this is how God kind of treasures his creation. Just like he is a hidden treasure, he keeps the treasures of his creation living eternally in one place or another.
And let's talk a bit about what we can do with this information. Now we have it, now we have this knowledge, we have this conversation going. What can we, as responsible believers or adults listening to this information, what can we do to impact our lives in a more positive way and the lives of other people? And I think one of the most crucial things that are very important to being a good believer is being secure, being wholesome. And you cannot do that, you cannot be that when you are anxious, when you are depressed, when you are lonely, when you are broken. You are then a hindrance not only to yourself but to others as well. You're not being a very good bee in the beehive, because you're contemplating over whether or not you exist and if anyone loves you and if you even matter to anybody. And of course you do, because you're part of the hive, you're part of this great structure that has been built for the goodness of others. So once you realize and understand and you sit down, and as you said earlier, Dr. Irfan, a person should really watch this over and over and contemplate over it. Something we can understand from this is that God truly loves his creation, and God truly loves you, and he really wants you to know that you exist to him, and that while God is the only reality, he is the only reality, that greater Hua, he's such a loving, benign, caring Father that he will create creation and take care of it no matter where they are or what is happening to them. He will be there for them, and he sees them. You are seen, you are acknowledged, you do exist, you are loved, you are cared for. To the extent that he never wants you to die out or not exist, he will always ensure that you are there and He is with you. Just knowing that and meditating on that and absorbing that would really strengthen your inner security, right? Your sense of security.
SubhanAllah. And it's also, it raises many questions. One of the questions it raised in my mind is that the benign and loving nature of God is waiting on us to change eventually by repeating the movie over and over again. Eventually, enough goodness or experience enters into the psyche or that being or the consciousness of that individual that they don't repeat the same mistake as they made in the previous rendition. Could it be in another 400 lifetimes that finally Judas decides not to betray Christ and the divine state is established in the kingdom of Israel?
That's so beautiful.
Or maybe in another 1,000 incarnations, Abu Bakr and Umar say, look, you know, I don't think it's going to work out very well for us. We don't want to be in those caskets in the bottom of the pit. Maybe we let the Prince of Believers do his thing and we benefit from it and we enter a new realm of consciousness ourselves, because these are still the creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So He is, this is what it means when we say the intensely merciful. You know, now we're getting insights into the true meanings of the rahmah, the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He gives these chances, and for some souls it takes longer and for others it's not so long, but they persevere for the sake of the other creations that need that extra bit of time to make finally the right choice.
It's just knowing that this potential exists is so mind-blowing and so beautiful. Make sure, if you want to see the whole episode, that you go to the Mahdi Has Appeared YouTube channel and you can see it in full there without me and Dr. Irfan in the middle just discussing our little thoughts and theories and opinions. Go ahead and see the full episode on the Mahdi Has Appeared YouTube channel. And
share your thoughts with us after watching it.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm telling you, there are going to be some insights out there from our audience members who need to then tell us what they think and how they think this can be applied to change our lives. And we've just shared a couple of our ideas, but I really look forward to hearing from you, the audience, about this episode. Very, very important, and something definitely to live for and to have a better opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Exactly. So thank you for tuning in this morning. It was a very interesting conversation.
It was.
And we'll see you again next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.